I'm doing this a little sooner than I really expected to uh, for April, but I didn't know that in March we were going to lose a legend, at least a legend in world class wrestling. On March 22nd, Bill Mercer passed away. Now, it's one of those situations where, he was 99 years old. He lived a good long life and was still sharp, was still, he was in assisted living, but he was still sharp, still had a pretty clear mind, was still doing interviews. Back in when the Iron Claw made its premiere, he was in attendance for that, so he wasn't. He was still in good shape right up to the time he passed. Just he was 99 years old, and we all that day comes for all of us. So they talk about making it a celebration of life rather than a funeral. I think that's he's one of the people that you can really say that about. He got everything out of life that he possibly could. It's not a sad thing to look back on Bill Mercer's time on this earth, even though it's still a shame that we've lost him. But when I brought this up, of course, I posted on the community page here on YouTube about it, and several people made comments, and one guy brought up that Bill Mercer should go into the WWE Hall of Fame. I gotta admit, I'm not a huge fan of the WWE Hall of Fame. I mostly because up to this point, there's just been no rhyme or reason for who goes in and when they go in. They had their first one in 1993, and Bruno Sammartino didn't go into the WWE Hall of Fame until 2013. The likes of Bob Orton Jr. and Jerry Lawler, and I think Tito Santana, if I'm not mistaken, all went in before Bruno Sammartino. And not to mention, if you're going to have a celebrity wing of a wrestling Hall of Fame, especially the WWE, which of course was the WWF before that, how can you not have Cyndi Lauper in there? And she's not. I mean, she was like the first celebrity to have a significant, in a very significant role in the WWF at the time. Now, granted, I don't know. Maybe they've offered it to her and she's turned it down. That's a possibility. With Sammartino, it was more of a personal conflict between him and Vince McMahon. But I think that's why I'm kind of a little more open to it now, because now that Vince is no longer there, and everything in WWE, including the Hall of Fame, is not just at the whims of this one person. Maybe they can kind of right this ship a little bit, because even though it's just a Hall of Fame on paper, so to speak, it's still the most recognized and most talked about wrestling Hall of Fame that there is. And so when this was brought up, I was like, that's a good point, especially considering the fact that the foundation of everything that the WWE is now is built on the boom of the 1980s. And a huge part of the boom of the 1980s was the WWF television production basically taking what World Class was doing and cartooning it up a bit. And so the more I thought about it, well, I'll get to that in a second. This is the primary thing about what I'm doing right now is I want to pay tribute to Bill Mercer. And so let me and I have no idea what I'm going to do for the visual on this, but I do know I'm going to have some pictures of Bill Mercer here. So let me just run through a kind of a mini world-class bios on the voice of world-class wrestling, Bill Mercer. William Anderson Mercer was born February 13th, 1926 in Muskogee, Oklahoma, to father Frank and mother Mamie. Bill had what would be a typical traditional upbringing in Muskogee before serving in the United States Navy during World War II, participating in 5 Pacific invasions as a signalman. After being honorably discharged from the Navy in 1946, Mercer returned to Muskogee, married his wife Irene, and studied under the GI Bill of Rights at Northeastern State University in Oklahoma. Mercer then received a degree in broadcasting from the University of Denver in 1949, and again returned to Muskogee to work for KMUS Radio. Bill became the voice of the Muskogee Giants, a Class C Western Association minor league baseball team. In 1953, Mercer was contacted by KRLD-TV in Dallas, which is Channel 4, and now known as KDFW-TV. They needed a commentator for their Tuesday night wrestling telecast live from the Sportatorium. Mercer accepted the job, not only doing Tuesday night wrestling, but also working as a news reporter for what was then a CBS affiliate. He actually left the wrestling broadcast in 1959 when he accepted the play-by-play job for the newly christened AFL's Dallas Texans radio broadcast, while still working for KRLD as a news reporter. Mercer would be with the Texans when they won the AFL championship in 1962, but the team then moved to Kansas City in 1963. During baseball season, he also handled play-by-play for the AAA Dallas-Fort Worth Rangers until that team moved to Vancouver in 1964. Mercer then took over play-by-play duties for the Dallas-Fort Worth Spurs until 1971. A little more on that later. Outside of sports, in 1963, Mercer became a part of American television history. Now, let me play this clip for you.
Did you kill the president?
No, I've not been charged with that. In fact, nobody has said that to me yet. The first thing I heard about it was when the newspaper reporters in the hall asked me that question.
You have been.
Nobody said what?
Sir?
You have been.
Nobody said what? Okay, we can't hear you then. Okay.
That's Bill Mercer interacting with Lee Harvey Oswald, who had just been taken into custody. You hear Mercer ask Oswald if he killed the president, talking about President John F. Kennedy, and then tell him, "You have been charged." Oswald did not know he was being charged with killing the president at that point. He thought he was being charged with killing a police officer, which was J.D. Tippit. Mercer telling Oswald was the first time Oswald had heard he was being charged with killing President Kennedy. Through the rest of the 1960s and into the 1970s, Mercer was the play-by-play man for the Dallas Cowboys radio network, which led to what he later called his most memorable moment as a broadcaster when he called the famous Ice Bowl game between the Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. Now, for those that don't know, this was the 1967 NFL Championship game that was played in below zero temperatures. Bill also called the Cowboys' first Super Bowl victory in 1972 when they crushed the Miami Dolphins in Super Bowl VI. In 1972, the Washington Senators moved to Arlington, Texas, and became the Texas Rangers, and Mercer became their first radio play-by-play man, along with former Dodger Don Drysdale as a color commentator on KRLD Radio. Mercer held that position for the first 2 seasons of the Rangers' existence. Bill also spent 1 season in 1974 doing play-by-play for the Chicago White Sox. Now, just to kind of wrap up his broadcasting work outside wrestling, Mercer also did some play-by-play for the Frisco Rough Riders and the Round Rock Express, the AA and AAA affiliates of the Texas Rangers, and was the color commentator for CBS Radio's annual Cotton Bowl Classic broadcast. During all of this, Bill worked for the University of North Texas, which was known as North Texas State University prior to 1988, and North Texas State College prior to 1961. Mercer worked for UNT from 1959 until 1994, doing play-by-play for football and basketball games. And you know what? That's not even really all of it. He authored books, taught classes at UNT. The guy wore so many hats, it's hard to keep up with it all. But to get back to the primary reason I'm talking about him now, in 1976, Mercer returned to pro wrestling when he replaced Dan Coates as the host of KTVT Channel 11 Saturday Night Wrestling. In the early 1980s, it was Mercer that worked with Mickey Grant to develop a new way to present pro wrestling. It was a collaboration that revolutionized pro wrestling on television. At that point, wrestling broadcasts on TV were simple wide shots and medium shots from stationary cameras, along with a third camera that was used for interviews. They didn't even have cameramen. Mercer and Grant wanted close-ups of the wrestlers, handheld cameras around the ring, capturing the sounds that pro wrestling made. Now, compared to what wrestling on television was before, this felt like they were bringing the action right into the viewer's living room. The show would be taped at the Sportatorium in Dallas and would go on to be the worldwide syndicated World Class Championship Wrestling, which also rebranded the territory, which had simply been known as Big Time Wrestling up to that point. The show was an instant hit across the country and around the world. At one point, Mercer was voted as the fourth most popular television personality in Israel. The top three were Kerry, Kevin, and David Von Erich. As things declined in the late 1980s, Mercer left the promotion and briefly did commentary for Wild West Wrestling, which was an outlaw promotion started by Ken Mantell that eventually merged with World Class. And after that, Bill worked with Gary Hart in several attempts to bring a new wrestling promotion to Dallas, the most successful of which was the Texas Wrestling Federation that only lasted a few months. Mercer kind of faded out of pro wrestling, but shed no tears for him. Bill had plenty of other irons in the fire and is already in several different halls of fame. Among others, Mercer is in the Muskogee High Athletics Hall of Fame, the Texas Intercollegiate Press Association Hall of Fame, the University of Texas Athletic Department Hall of Fame, the Texas Sports Radio Hall of Fame, and the Texas Radio Hall of Fame. And considering the fact that he was recognized as the voice of World Class Championship Wrestling, played a huge part in creating the television show World Class Championship Wrestling, and with Mickey Grant, changed the way pro wrestling was presented on television, he certainly deserves recognition in pro wrestling. And the fact that the then WWF did more than their fair share of stealing the ideas Mercer and Grant made a reality, I think induction into the WWE Hall of Fame is more than justified. But the more I've thought about it, maybe Mickey Grant should be in there too. Because he and Mercer were the idea guys, but really Mickey Grant was the one that had the tech knowledge. And I've seen interviews with Mickey Grant, and he kind of laughs when somebody says something about him being such an innovator in pro wrestling on television, because Mickey Grant was not really a wrestling fan. And that's kind of why it worked. He looked at it from a television production point of view. That's why it was so different. Because I think a wrestling guy never would have come up with those ideas. You want cameras right by the ring? No, we can't do that. They'll hear him calling spots and stuff. But Mickey and Mercer both wanted to present things like a sporting event, not just a wrestling show. So I think maybe there's room for a dual induction with both Mercer and Mickey Grant going in. Now, Michael Hayes still works for WWE. He could be the one to induct them. Or maybe even, Mark Calloway, The Undertaker. He started out in World Class. It should happen, but for it to actually happen, the WWE is going to have to admit they didn't invent everything. So I don't know if it ever will. I think there is hope that it could now, because a lot of that did come from Vince McMahon. Unfortunately, since Vince has been gone, I haven't seen a lot of lightening up on that kind of way of going about things from WWE. there still seems to be that it didn't exist until we did it kind of thing. But I think what I'm going to do is somewhere online. Maybe I'll do an X poll, Twitter, whatever, asking people to vote. Should Mickey Grant and Bill Mercer be, or just have sign a petition kind of thing, something I can then forward to WWE. Maybe I can get some kind of groundswell of support going, and we'll just see. Maybe in 2026, maybe we could see Bill Mercer and Mickey Grant, one or the other or both, inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. If not, maybe I'll just start my own. We'll have a little a view from the middle Hall of Fame, a little YouTube Hall of Fame. Make it entirely fan voted, and we'll just induct 2 or 3 people a year or something. But I just thought we'd take a look real quick at some of the people who have been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Of course, the first one was in 1993. The only person inducted was Andre the Giant. And of course, it's been said that that's the whole reason they came up with the WWF Hall of Fame at the time. The whole reason the WWF Hall of Fame was even created was so they could induct Andre the Giant. He was the only person being inducted that first year. 1994, I'm never sure how to say his name. Arnold Skoland. He was the manager of Bob Backlund and Bruno Sammartino, and of course was a successful wrestler in his day as well. Bobo Brazil, Buddy Rogers, Chief Jay Strongbow, Classy Freddie Blassie, Gorilla Monsoon, and James Dudley were all inducted. 1995, Ernie Ladd, George the Animal Steele, Ivan Putski, the Fabulous Moolah, the Grand Wizard, Pedro Morales, and Antonino Rocca. 1996, it's a bit awkward now, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Johnny Rods, Killer Kowalski, Captain Lou Albano, I'm not sure how to say that name, Mikhail Cicluna, I'm sorry, I probably butchered that, Pat Patterson and Vincent J. McMahon, Vince McMahon's father. The Valiant Brothers were inducted as a group. And that was actually the last year they had it for a while. They didn't have it, so that was 1996. They didn't have it again until 2004, and that's when it really started becoming a thing. That's when they added the celebrity wing. Pete Rose went in as a part of the celebrity wing. They also had Big John Studd, Bobby Heenan, Don Morocco, Greg Valentine, Harley Race, Jesse Ventura, Junkyard Dog, Sergeant Slaughter, Superstar Billy Graham, and Tito Santana. 2005, Bob Orton Jr., Jimmy Hart, Hulk Hogan, Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov, Paul Orndorff, and Roddy Piper. 2006, Bret Hart, Eddie Guerrero, Gene Okerlund, Sherry Martel, Tony Atlas, Vern Gagne, the Blackjacks as a group, Blackjack Mulligan and Blackjack Lanza, and William Perry went in to the celebrity wing. I probably shouldn't have started this because I just realized how long that's going to take to go through all these. But just to cut to some of the more recent and I guess what we're going to be looking at here anyway is, of course, the Von Erichs went in. What year did they go in? It was 2009 when the Von Erichs went in as a group. The Funks also went in that same year. I didn't even realize that. So, the Von Erichs went in 2009, inducted by Michael Hayes. And in 2016, the Fabulous Freebirds went in, including Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts, and Jimmy Garvin. They were inducted by the New Day, which at the time was Big E, Kofi Kingston, and Xavier Woods. But you have a few world-class alumni. Rick Rude went in 2017. Of course, the Ultimate Warrior, who was the Dingo Warrior in World Class, went in 2014. So the point being, there is some world class representation, and it is something that has been around for a while. It's like as I said, I've never been a fan, but the fact of the matter is, it is the most recognized, best known Hall of Fame in existence, and it would just be nice to see Bill Mercer and Mickey Grant get recognition into the WWE Hall of Fame. Are there any other world class stars you think maybe Gino? Should Gino go into the WWE Hall of Fame? Of course, the way they've opened it up, it's not just wrestlers who appeared in WWE, which I'm amazed they even did that. But it's just anybody who played a prominent role in professional wrestling. I think a good chance Gino could go in. Jimmy Garvin's already in as one of the fabulous Freebirds. I guess Jake Roberts is in now, isn't he? Yeah. Jake was there in World Class for a little while. If there's anybody else you can think of, you can feel free to leave a comment. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this a little bit short. I'm going to be able to edit it out, but I have been coughing the entire time through all of this. Wouldn't you know, I sat down to do a voiceover. That's the day I've got the itchy throat and everything. But I'm going to look around and see if I can find something for starting some kind of petition or poll or something. And we'll just see if we can get the WWE's attention. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and learned a few things about Bill Mercer. Let me also say rest in peace, Bill Mercer. Thanks for everything you did. As I said, when they were doing the Iron Claw movie and they cast the role of Bill Mercer, so I think that's one of the most important things about Mercer is he brought such a sense of legitimacy to World Class, because he was such a known and respected individual in broadcasting in Dallas-Fort Worth. And World Class helped make him known across the country and around the world. If you have any other thoughts on that, you can feel free to add them. I hope you enjoyed this reasonable facsimile of a podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, not necessarily in that order. And I will see you next time.